Hey everybody, we're so glad that you're with us again talking discipleship strategy. In today's video, we want to talk about gospel-centered discipleship. Just as a reminder, how we define discipleship is a clear pathway of moving students from unbelief to belief in the gospel in every area of their life, changing what they love and how they live. And so you probably noticed in that definition, one of the keys to discipleship is the gospel. The gospel is the good news of what Jesus has done on our behalf. And it's important for us to include that in this because oftentimes when it comes to discipleship, we can focus instead of on the gospel, we can focus on things like changing behavior modification. We can focus on how do we get students to look and behave like Christians and forget that the power of discipleship comes in the gospel. The power of discipleship comes in the person and work of Jesus. And if we're not intentional about that, it's easy to drift away from the heart of what discipleship is really all about. So today I want to talk to you about that. How do we do gospel-centered discipleship? And I would break it down into two fundamental categories that we need to understand as we're discipling students. And the first is this: we have to understand the problem. When we talk to students about the problem in their lives, oftentimes we think about it as sin. And that's true. Sin is the fundamental problem for us as Christians, that we live outside of what God wants for our life, and that we live with sin in our life, and that we need that issue of sin to be dealt with. And of course, we know the solution to our sin issue is Jesus. But one of the things that often happens when we're discipling students is we misplace where their problem actually is. And so when a student is struggling with an issue, we tend to focus on their behavior and the things that they're doing wrong. You're lying, you're cheating, you're sexually active with your girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever the sin issue is, we focus on the behavior. And I want to encourage you to rethink that their problem actually is not their behavior, but their problem is the heart idols that exist inside of them. And idolatry is a theme you'll see all throughout the Bible, and we sometimes dismiss it as an Old Testament, oh, that's back then, those pagan religions, those wild people. But actually, it still exists today. An idol is something that we love and trust, put our faith in more than Jesus. And so one of the things that we see all throughout the Bible is this idea that our sin problem, most of all, is not rooted in our behavior, but it's rooted in what we behold, what we love. And all of us have things in our life that we put our hope and trust in. Those are our idols. Tim Chester, in his book, You Can Change, lays out four heart idols, four primary idols, and I think he's right on with this. And he says every human heart, every sin that exists can be based in one of these four idols. Number one, approval. We find our identity, our hope, and value in whether or not people like us, whether or not they approve of us. And so we will do things to get the approval of the people around us. Number two is power. We find our identity, our hope, and our value in being in positions of power and authority over others, and we'll do whatever it takes to get that. Number three is the idea of security. And so we want to be in control. Maybe you're one of those people that's like, I got to know I have a certain amount of money in my bank account, and I got to have all my ducks in a row, and if I'm not in control, I lose myself, right? And so that's their primary heart idol. And lastly, and I think this is one for our generation of students now, is the idol of comfort. I want to avoid pain or discomfort, so I'll fill my life, I'll numb myself with pornography or Netflix or food. It could even be with working out. I'll become obsessive about something to avoid having to deal with the pain that's in my life. And so Tim Chester says every sin is rooted in one of these heart idols. And the problem that we have is we're worshiping things other than Jesus. And so what this looks like is if my idol is approval, I will do things. Sometimes that behavior is good behavior, for the wrong reasons. And sometimes that behavior is bad behavior, all because my heart desperately wants what Jesus has already given me. And so when we talk to students about the problem in their lives, it's important to remind ourselves and remind them that their real problem is not the bad things they're doing, it's the bad things that they're loving. And oftentimes those actual bad things are not bad things at all. They're good things that have become ultimate things in their life. See, any good thing that we place above Jesus becomes a bad thing for us. And so for your students, helping them walk through this process and identify what is the idol in your life that you're trusting in, that you're looking to. Is it approval? Is it power? Is it comfort? Is it control or security? What is the thing that you're trusting in more than Jesus? And out of that will be evidenced by behavior. So we want you to think about when it comes to gospel-centered discipleship is step one, you have to understand the problem. What is the idol that my students are trusting in? The second thing we have to understand is what's the solution? And we've kind of identified that that the solution is the gospel. The solution to every sin problem in a person's life is the message and hope that comes in Jesus. See, Jesus, when we realize that our identity is not found in these idols, it's not found in approval or power or comfort or control, but ultimately it's found in Christ, that he gives us everything that our heart ultimately desires. So our problem is not the bad things we're doing, but it's that our heart is looking to other things other than Jesus. The solution is Jesus. We need more of Jesus. We need our hearts to be awakened to the beauty of the gospel and who he is, so that our hearts will stop looking for idols and find our rest in him. And I want to encourage you, one of the ways that we've done this in our youth ministry and my time discipling youth and young adults is we have a process that I use called look in, look up, and look out. And this is maybe a helpful process for you to help students find their solution to their problem. So what we would do with a student, and I had a student come to me one time and he was so angry at his father, so mad at his dad about something that had happened. I think it was something where his dad wouldn't let him go do something that he wanted to do, which is pretty typical of teenagers. And I said, all right, well, let's think about it. Why are you so angry with your dad? And the first step is this: look in. Help them figure out, what idol am I trusting in other than Christ in this moment? So I remember saying to him, why are you so angry? And of course, every teenager, well, I don't know, he's a jerk, right? And they give these one-liners. And so the key to figuring that out is you got to keep asking the why questions. To look in, you got to ask why and dig deeper and diggers. So I say, well, why does that make you angry? Why is that? And after about 20 minutes of going, why, he found out the reason why he was angry at his dad is he felt like he was going to miss out on this moment, that his friends were going to think less of him because he wasn't at this party or this engagement that he really wanted to go to. And so now he was mad at his dad because his dad was preventing his heart from getting the approval of his friends that he really wanted. So it takes a long time, but we dug down and we looked in and found out what idol he was trusting in, which in his case was approval. The second step is to look up. And I said, okay, well, you can see that your heart is trusting in approval. Well, let's look up, let's point our hearts to the solution to that. And so we started to talk through the gospel and say, why do you need the approval of your friends when you have the approval of the creator of the universe? So if God, who knows us best, knows every sinful and broken detail of our heart, gave up everything to rescue us, he ultimately approves of us. Why do we need the approval of our friends? And we started to talk through and apply the gospel to his heart. And as we're walking through that and working through the solution to his problem, all of a sudden, his heart begins to soften. And he begins to realize, I actually don't need that. And what seemed to be this massive problem at the beginning started to shrink down. And the interesting thing is, his anger towards his father also began to shrink. Because he realized ultimately what his problem was not his dad. His problem was his own heart and trusting in the idol of approval. So that's the look up perspective. The idea is to look up to God, look up to the gospel. And the last one is look out. And this one of the things that happens oftentimes is we get angry and we wrong people, right? And so in his case, he had wronged his dad by being nasty and being mean and getting in a fight with his dad. And so now that the gospel had softened his heart and he realized that the issue was not his dad, it was him, we encourage him, now go look out, go make it right with the person that you've wronged. And so he was able to have a conversation with his dad. He was able to apologize because now his anger had been diffused because he realized his problem and he realized the solution. So when you're discipling students, it's really important as you're walking through life with them to read their emotions. Emotions will always signal heart idols and things that we're trusting in, and help them recognize their problem, which is not the bad things that they're doing, but it's the trusting in things other than Jesus, and then be able to offer them a solution that actually works. And one thing that we encourage you to do is to do this process, the look in, what's the idol I'm trusting? Look up, What does the gospel tell me about who I am? And then ultimately look out. When I've wronged somebody, let's make it right.